Welcome to Intersecting Voices, a podcast where diverse stories collide to inspire change and amplify voices. Welcome to Intersecting Voices, the podcast where we dive into stories of identity, resilience, and transformation. Today I'm thrilled to welcome Andy Cope, the founder of the Art of Brilliance. Andy is a former psychologist who turned his passion for positive psychology into a movement that helps people shift their attitudes and perspectives towards a more joyful, resilient, and brilliant life. Andy's work has touched thousands through workshops, books, and inspiring talks. What's fascinating is not just the impact of his framework, but the journey that brought him here, from his time as a psychologist to a transformative stay in India meditating to building a thriving business centered on optimism and reflection. In this episode, we'll explore what the art of brilliance really means, the personal motivations behind Andy's journey, and how his message has reached even those who experience the world differently, like neurodivergent people and trauma survivors. So let's get into it. Welcome, Andy.
Well, thanks for having me, Sonia. I'm super excited about that introduction. That makes me sound very big and clever. Of which I'm a normal bloke from England, by the way, who's worked super hard to learn about positive psychology. So let's share some of that with your listeners.
Definitely, yeah. So I just for the listeners, I went to one of Andy's workshops earlier this year, and I thought it was very transformative. So it's really exciting to have you here. So can you tell us a little bit more about what the art of brilliance means to you? Like, how would you describe the core concept to someone who's hearing about it for the first time?
Yeah, okay. So I studied traditional psychology, like loads of people study psychology. It's a super popular course at university now. Everybody's studying psychology. And for 150 years of psychology, psychology has basically been about illness. So it's what we call a disease model. So psychology has been about phobias and disorders and anxiety and trauma, actually, which we might talk about later. So for 150 years of psychology, the essential model has been let's find out let's find why people are struggling, and then let's help them. So here's some therapy, here's some counseling, or here's some medication that will help you to recover. Now I get that, and I think that's wonderful, and I used to lecture in that as well. Um, but after 150 years of academic study, 150 years of psychology being around as a subject, actually, if you look around, all your listeners look around at their lives, the truth is that mental ill health has been getting worse, not better. So what struck me, and we're going back to 2005, I used to work at I was a student at Loughborough University at the business school there, and I was also delivering lectures on phobias and disorders and anxiety and burnout and all that kind of stuff, which is very, very valuable. But I think I got me thinking, after 150 years of study, and things are getting worse, not better. What are we missing? We must be missing something. Okay. So what I realized in 2005 was that pretty much for the entirety of psychology as a subject, it has pretty much ignored people who are already happy. Right, so on the workshop, what I call them the 2%ers. So basically, there's a bunch of people out there, not many, but people who have got a spring in their step and a smile on their face, and they seem to have extra energy, extra passion for life. They seem to love Mondays like everybody else loves Fridays. It's a bit strange. They rock up at a meeting and try things. They rock at a meeting with an open mind rather than a closed mind. They create strong relationships. They're your work colleagues who go the extra mile. You don't have to ask them 10 times. It's just built in. So I got thinking, well, who the heck are these people who've got this extra something? Because psychology has literally ignored them for 150 years on the grounds of them not being ill. So what I decided to do, what Art of Brilliance is, I didn't know it was going to be, I was going to write books or do talks or run a business about it at the time. I was just insanely interested in flipping psychology away from what's wrong with people to what's right with people, or away from illness towards wellness, away from surviving to thriving. However you want to think about it, who are the people who are already happy? What are they doing that allows them to flourish? And the big thing that I was showing in my workshop with you is what could we then learn from them that we can apply to ourselves so we might also feel the uplift as well. So that's what Art of Being Brilliance is. It's sharing positive psychology. So I jumped on it in 2005. I got a PhD in the science of happiness and the science of human flourishing, and that's what we do now. There's a team of 20 of us. We deliver training and keynotes all around the world, and because the world needs it, right? Like everybody listening to this, the world. I don't know when you're going to listen to this, but at time of recording, right? I've switched the news on this morning, and it is just getting worse and worse. Like globally, the world has gone crazy. It really, really has. And I can't think of a time in human history where we need positivity and optimism and kindness and gratitude more now than we ever have. So that's what it is. That's what we do, and that's why I'm excited to speak to you to share the message.
Yeah, it's true. Like there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and the same that is now at the time of recording, and it'll probably be at the same time where we when we launch the episode. I don't think a lot is going to change by then, but
No, it's getting worse, not better. It's going the wrong way, not the right way. And the thing is, Sonia, I can't. What I figured was, I spent about 40 years trying to change the world. All right, if only the world would bend itself to make me happy. Why does the world keep doing these bad things to me? And then I realized after about 40 years of trying to change the world isn't going to change, right? The world is going to continue to do what the world does. The world isn't going to bend over backwards to make me happy. So what I realized is that the only thing that's in my control is actually me. All right. And that's really where positive psychology starts, is by, it's quite brave, really, and requires a degree of courage to look back at ourselves and what kind of person do we want to be? Despite the world being mad and full on and exhausting, and I know it is, but it's like, how do I show up? How can I show up as my best self in a world that's hell bent on knocking that out of me? So it's not about changing the world; it's about changing what's going on inside of us, so we can thrive in the world.
so when I was listening to your workshop and you mentioned the two percenters, and I realized, oh gosh, there's no two percenters in my life. I mean, I'm probably the most positive one, and I'm at best a 20 percenter. So, my question for you is, are you a two percenter, or did you used to be, if you are now? Is
Let me just, for your listeners, let me go back and just unpick the two percenter phrase, because if you've never heard it before, so basically what I did at in my PhD, I got lots of data on how people are feeling in the workplace. So I was measuring emotions in the workplace, and then I was able to plot people onto a graph of happiness at work. And if you did that, then everybody's got a natural high point and a natural low point during the week. So we've all got this level of where we feel amazing. There'll be something will happen this week at work where, oh my gosh, I love my job, right? There's some good customer feedback. There's a positive meeting. Somebody says, thank you, job well done. It doesn't matter what it is, but there's a version of you that's got a smile on your face. You feel optimistic, you feel creative, you feel resilient. And if I bring you a problem when you're actually at the top end of your well-being, then it's not a problem, because there's a version of all of us that can cope with almost anything the world throws at us. And equally, if I measured everybody's emotions during their working week, everybody, including me, we've all got the other end of the well-being spectrum. So everybody listening to this has got a time during the week where you might love your job most of the time, but not now in this moment, right? It's an angry customer, it's a negative work colleague, it's a drizzly day. I mean, you live in Aberdeen, it's a dark, cold February morning. It's those times when it's like, oh, your shoulders have gone, there's not much energy. Why do I bother? There's got to be an easier way, all right? So we've all got a natural high point, natural low point. Now, so I plotted thousands of people onto a graph of well-being, and what I found was that far too many people end up spending far too much of their time in the bottom third of the diagram. So we've got this kind of workplace culture. Well, work is called work for a reason, right? They pay people to be there. If they didn't pay you, you wouldn't be there. You'd rather be somewhere else. So we can get stuck in this bottom third of counting down to our weekends, counting down to our holidays, rolling our eyes, tutting, being a bit low level grumbling, right? Which is fine. I've got no problem with that. I spent 40 years doing what everybody else does, which is getting through by the skin of my teeth to my next holiday. But the two percenters, so what I found was, and here's where the research kicks in, where the Art of Brilliance is, not everybody's in that bottom third. There's this small percentage of the population that I nicknamed the two percenters on the grounds of them not being very many of them. But when you plot them on the graph of well-being, they're very much closer towards the top end of the well-being spectrum. So statistically significantly happier and more energy. And I think the energy thing is really interesting. About you've got about 40% more energy when you're operating at that higher level of well-being. I mean, 40% more energy, we could all do with some of that. They do things, they keep an open mind on problems, they have a more optimistic mindset, they show more gratitude, they give awesome customer service, they're great to have in your team, and they're great to have at home as well. So it's these 2%ers, these quite like you say, you can't think of very many of them. No, we haven't got enough of them. We've got lots and lots of the other end, which I call the mood hoovers, the ones who can get stuck in, like I was for 40 years. I wasn't sad, I wasn't depressed, I wasn't anxious, but I was a bit stuck in going through the motions. Life was very, there was something missing, and I figured if there's what I said earlier, if there's something missing in your life, it's probably you. You at your best is the missing piece. So that's what so when listeners are thinking what a 2%er is, a 2%er is somebody you can all think of, maybe a handful of them in your life, these people with this extra something, an extra spring in their step, an extra smile on their face, an extra energy about them. And my research was about, well, who are the 2%ers? What are they doing that allows them to be there? And what can we learn from them so we can be one as well? So that's it. And I'm a reformed mood hoover. So essentially, I come from a little town in England called Derby. And I love Derby, but I guarantee that there's not a great deal of 2%. Like, if I stop 100 people, how are you? Well, I'm not too bad considering. Or I'll be all right at 5 o'clock. Or living the dream. So we've got this whole language. I don't know, because I know this is going out in Spanish and English. I don't know what the Spanish culture is, right? With a bit more sunshine, it might help. But certainly in the UK, it's very easy to get stuck in being yourself averagely. All right. And therefore, to be that 2%er, to be that thriving, positive, optimistic, vibrant version of yourself is a bit more difficult, and it takes a little bit of practice. But it's so worth the effort.
Yeah, it's just answering the question about the UK and Spain. I did realise that in at least in Scotland, people say, how are you? Yeah, not bad, nae bad, and things like that.
And
um,
Spain, and Spain.
in Spain, they say I'm okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, because it is we've delivered sessions all over the world, and mood hoovers, these people who get stuck or languishing, I sometimes call it, is that sense of lack. It exists everywhere. I delivered some training in Mauritius, right, which is a tropical island in the Indian Ocean. So I'm flying into Mauritius, looking over this tropical island. Oh my God, why am I delivering the Art of Being Brilliant there? Surely they're going to be happy in Mauritius. And I went into their town hall in the capital city, and all the locals are so negative. Well, it's really hot here, too hot. You know, all the foreigners are coming in, taking all our jobs. We're thinking of moving to London. So even a tropical island in the Indian Ocean, the locals are rolling their eyes and grumbling about tropical paradise. So it is a human condition. It's not a British thing. It's all of us just need a little leg up. Now the beauty of being a 2%er is it's I was looking for what in my PhD, I was looking for what we call intentional strategies, which are basically learned behaviors. So the 2%ers, what I was looking for, well, what can we learn from them? And they've got lots of things that they do differently to the mood hoover zone, and you can all learn it. And the beauty of being a 2%er, it's not about pretending you're somebody that you're not. It's not about copying anybody else. What I'm really talking about is being more of who you already are at your best. That's it, right? But remember, the world is trying to knock you off being a 2%er into the mood hoover zone. There's always this like magnetic force into mediocrity. So we have to fight against that.
Yeah, and you mentioned, like, you said you've been for many years in your life mood hoover. So have I, but both of us are reforming from that. So it is
Yes.
possible, and to me, is your inner thoughts. It's also society. You fit into a society that's already a mood hoover. So it requires that extra effort to be a 2%er, not be, as you say, like brought down by society and the people around you, but also it takes effort. It takes effort to challenge all those inner thought, the inner voice. It's a lot easier to complain than it is to actually look at all the positive things in life.
It is. I mean, that's called negativity bias. I'm sure your listeners will have heard of it, but essentially, factory fitted into the human system is our willingness to see negative. So, like on your commute home, it only takes one bad driver to ruin your entire commute. Your brain will delete the 400 good drivers. It'll remember the one, yeah. Or we notice the red traffic lights. We don't notice the green traffic lights. We notice the queue at the supermarket. We don't notice when there's no queue. We notice the late train. We don't notice the train when it arrives on time. So all the time, what our brains are doing is we are looking out for bad stuff and focusing on that. And really, what the 2% does is they live in exactly the same world. So the external world is exactly the same. But as you just mentioned, it's really to do with the habits of thinking and how they filter the world around them to not let's not pretend that it's great and let's not pretend, jazz hand our way through life, but it is about making a determined effort to raise our personal well-being bar.
So you mentioned in your workshop, the one that I've seen, that you were in India for a few months and you were meditating. So I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about
Yeah,
that and what
yeah.
was happening in your life.
Yeah, I decided. So this is just before the pandemic. It was 2019, and I've worked in India a few times. I don't know if you've ever been to India, but it's quite chaotic. It's quite hard work to travel in it. But I'd only worked in India, and I had a desire to go back. Particularly, there's a town in the north, in the foothills of the Himalayas, that I'd heard of called Rishikesh, and Rishikesh is quite a sort of spiritual town. It's a bit woo-woo, all right? There's lots of what are called ashrams, which are like monasteries, and it's a mixture of Buddhism and Hinduism and peace and love and hippieism. So I went for 3 months. I thought, I'm just going to go. My wife didn't want to come, so it was just me with a backpack traveling in India. And I went up to Rishikesh. Beautiful place. It's on the Ganges, but at the top end, so it's a clean Ganges. The Himalayas are in the background. And I spent 3 months there in an ashram, sitting cross-legged, meditating. It was weird, but what I was trying to do was just um, because there's the Western academic approach to well-being, and there's all these Eastern and Indian philosophies like Confucius and Buddha and all that. I thought, well, let's bring them together because the Eastern philosophy seems really cool and being in the moment, and the Western science seems good. So if we could bring those together, so I went. I enjoyed it. I found it quite difficult. I'm not naturally a meditator. uh, I struggle to even sit with my legs crossed. You know what I mean? I'm not very not very flexible, so I struggled with it. But I took away loads of experiences, and I think I came back with lots of stories, and I think some insights into how East meets West.
So you already had the Art of Brilliance set up at that point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, we're 20 years old now as a business. So we were 15 years old then, and yeah, the business was thriving. I was very lucky that I can take 3 months off to go and experience other cultures and immerse myself in spirituality, really. Um, so yeah, it was really good. I learned. I think I came back a more calm, peaceful human being. I've not had road rage since I came back because I know how to deal with all that nonsense now. And I think I tell you what, also you see really genuine poverty. So again, the Brits we grumble about fuel prices and food prices, thinking that poverty. We haven't got no idea what actual real poverty really is. So you come back feeling quite humbled, actually, by what we have got here, and how lucky we are in the Western world to have a roof over our head, a comfortable bed, a fridge full of food. Yeah, without getting too in your face with this, we are very lucky people.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, it was helpful, I suppose, then from a grounding perspective, getting well, yeah, perspective actually to how other people live, and I guess acknowledge the things that you've got here. I think sometimes we all need that.
Well, yes, I think, again, I don't know about Spain, but certainly in the UK, the vast majority of people will spend almost their entire life complaining about what they haven't got. So we're all chasing more all the time. We want more. We are led to believe in the West that if we buy more stuff, then we'll be happy. So we're chasing every advert on the TV is designed to make you unhappy. So you've got to upgrade your laptop. You've got to get a faster phone. You've got to have your food delivered to your door. You've got to have an electric car. You need a bigger house. right? And therefore we're pursuing more all the time. Whereas really, I think what um, the whole sort of meditative tradition gives you is more peace, and actually nothing's permanent anyway. So letting go and being comfortable with what is, being comfortable with less, actually, and instead of chasing more, is look around at what we've already got and marvel at that. So that gives you a fresh perspective, which links in with what the two percenters do. So the single biggest thing that they do, and again, you've already alluded to it earlier, is they carry a great attitude with them. In my PhD, I call it a portable benefit. So consciously and deliberately crafting an attitude that works in your favor. So that's generally a positive attitude, and they carry it around with them. So it goes to meetings, goes to work, it comes home with you because it's built in. And gratitude, so looking at what you have got instead of grumbling about what you haven't got, is just an easy, quick win to get your mindset in the right place, to have a great attitude that goes with you.
It makes such a difference as well. I notice, like, when you just feel sorry for yourself, or you just, you know, pay attention to all the things that you don't have, you you miss the moment. You miss the here and now. You miss all the things that you've got, and you only realize what you had when you lose them. And you think, like, why didn't I pay attention to this before? And materialism is like, what I find is, you buy a new car, or I don't know, something new that you like, and it's, the happiness is not going to last you very long. I mean, at some point, very soon, actually, after you bought it, it's not new anymore.
Yeah.
And you
It's a
spend your
quick
whole
it's a
life.
quick win. It's a quick win. I'm not saying don't buy things. If you want to buy things, you buy them. But I'm just saying before you rush out and buy more, just have a look at what you've already got. I'm driving up and down the motorways, Sonia, and I see lots of these big self-storage warehouses. You'll have them in Aberdeen. We've got them in Derby now. So these are huge warehouses, and every time I drive past one of these self-storage places, I do a double take and I go, well, hang on. It seems to me that we've now accumulated so much stuff that's failed to make us happy that we're now renting somewhere to put it so we can create some space at home so we can buy some more stuff that's ultimately going to fail to make us happy. And we're on this materialistic treadmill. It's called the hedonic treadmill in psychology, which is like a real treadmill, like you're going nowhere. You're buying, you're accumulating, 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 and it might give you a quick win, but actually, long-term happiness, which the Greeks called eudaimonia, is much more about values and purpose and long-term relationships, investing in long-term happiness, not the quick wins. It's more about a values-driven life and a purpose-driven life. And therefore, you have to sometimes give up the quick wins in order to pursue long-term gains.
Yeah. Um, so I wanted to maybe discuss how the art of brilliance could, I guess, fit into to other types of public, the ones that are not normative, like neurodivergent people, people who've been through trauma. And it's basically groups who have maybe a different starting point when it comes to positivity. Our brains work a little bit different, or very different, who knows. um, and well, I mean, from my point of view, being neurodivergent, have been through trauma, and frankly, a lot of women and a lot of neurodivergent people have been through trauma, and they are just a higher risk to experiencing it. And I was sitting watching your workshop, and a lot of it made a lot of sense to me. But then there was some times when I felt, I didn't quite fit into that kind of framework of positivity, and I had to maybe adapt it a little bit to myself. And yeah, so I just wanted to discuss that a little bit more with you.
Okay, well, I don't know your background, but I'm hoping you can help me out here, maybe with how you translated what I said. I personally don't think that it makes a great deal of difference about your background on the workshop. I'm talking to any living, breathing human being who wants to be the best version of themselves. So, and there's a lot of talk about living your best life and being your best self, but not many people are achieving that. So, actually, what positive psychology does, it gives you a leg up to that. I tell you what, Sonia, I did a session in for 600 school teachers, um, and I started with something different. So it was a really big event, and I was quite nervous. And I thought I'll start with something different today. So I said and I'm in a huge auditorium with 600 people, and I said to these adults, I said, okay, before we start, I want you to stand up if you're struggling with your mental health, or you know somebody close to you who's struggling with their mental health. And Sonia, 600 people stood up. All right, so everybody, literally everybody in the room stood up, and I was like tearing up, because what I realized is that literally everybody listening to this podcast either will be directly or indirectly, you will know somebody who is really struggling. And I'm talking about mental health there rather than neurodiversity. But here's my neurodiverse thing. I mean, I better not say where, but I did some work in a school not long ago in a northern English town, and year five, so what are they, 9, 10 years old? Three-quarters of their year fives have now got a neurodivergent or some sort of diagnosis. Three-quarters, Sonia, of the kids coming through the system in that particular school were neurodiverse. Right, so it's almost like neurotypical it was like neurotypical to be neurodiverse. I'm getting mixed up, but you know what I mean? It's almost an exception if you haven't got a diagnosis. And therefore, before we talk about neurodiversity, I just think that we might be, I don't want to speak out of turn here. I've got to be really careful what I say, overdiagnosing, particularly in kids. Um, because I can't see that three-quarters of them, I can't see that that's right. Okay. But now, and also the thing with you, if like it's a genuine neurodivergent thing, and with the kids who are genuinely, then it's taking resources away from those who really need it. All right. So you're getting diagnosed with something that's not really necessarily a problem, and you're taking additional support away from somebody who it really is a problem. Okay, because schools are so stretched and so thin, there isn't enough support to go around. So I would like to see the definition of the neurodiversity just coming back into line, so that the people who need the help can actually get the help. So that's now that might not be a very popular message, but that's what I'm seeing. However, let's go back to your question, right? Your question was like, so you sort of liked the workshop, but you had to double think how it would apply to you. So tell me what tell me let me interview you. What do you mean by that? What
Yeah, well, just a little bit back to what you said before about overdiagnosing, and I think maybe there is more neurodivergent people. There always was more neurodivergent people. It was in like a minority. It's just, and as a woman, I can tell you that a lot of the, um, well, the criteria are for men. How stereotypical, men would show neurodivergence. So a lot of women are not diagnosed. And then when it comes to children, suddenly there is a lot more understanding of what neurodivergence is. And it's more inclusive. So there is more people who are getting picked up now. So I think, we're probably not a minority. It's just that before, we masked or we were invisible. I can't really comment whether it's being overdiagnosed or not, because I do think there is a lot more to learn about neurodiversity
Yeah,
um,
agreed.
in many countries.
It's interesting that you talk about the female underdiagnosis. I've never thought about that, but yeah, I guess like thinking about in schools, it is nearly always the boys who've
Yeah.
been diagnosed. So yeah, that's interesting. So back to me interviewing you. How did you take on the principles that I'm talking about?
So
How did you
just
have to adapt?
to give you a little bit of background about myself, I over the last 3 years were really difficult, both in a personal and professional level. I just had like lots of things coming to me at the same time. So, in the past, I've been in an abusive relationship. I was there for a very long time. I had, well, a daughter. She's still quite young, but we realized that she was neurodivergent quite early on, and no one really believed me because, again, we don't have a lot of knowledge about neurodiversity, especially in girls, and especially in the UK. In Spain, it's a little bit more developed in that way. I didn't have any network. At some point I got divorced. I went through court. I had a miscarriage as well. So, there was a lot of things. I was diagnosed with ADHD and giftedness, which is not a thing in the UK yet, but is in other countries and is as well part of neurodiversity. Um, so all of a sudden, I was surviving. I was surviving, and it was really difficult. But there is something that I know about myself is that I have the gift of perspective. So when you were talking about you're talking about things like, the car, and, how we instantly think, we just got like the bat driver and that annoys us, and you got like the traffic light and so on. These things can be, I find to myself, in my situation, they could be extrapolated to the big things that happen to us in life. So, for example, when I had the miscarriage, I was 5 months pregnant, and obviously that's not what I wanted to happen. I was quite devastated about it, but I always felt like whatever's happened to me in my life, I can always look for the positive side of it. So rather than feeling sad about it, which I did as well, obviously you have to acknowledge your feelings. I had a really bonding moment with my mom there in hospital. So I don't remember it as a sad memory. I remember it as a happy memory because I took that opportunity. My mom was chatting to me, and it was like, I'm really close to my family, so this was really special to me. I felt like, as a single mom to one child, it's already difficult. It had been a single mom to two children, it would have been even harder. When it comes to, I guess, knowing myself, and this is what I've done in the last 3 years. If all of this hadn't happened to me, if my life hadn't broken into pieces and I hadn't gone to the bottom of it, I wouldn't have been able to rebuild my life in the way that I wanted and the way that made sense to me and my family. I would have just kept building in a life that didn't make sense to me. So that's another positive. I feel like my resilience, my ability to reinvent myself, to actually find out who I really am. That's what makes me. That's what's going to allow me to be happy in my life. Because happiness is not. And this is the other thing. I thought happiness was about. Um, you study, you find a good job, you climb the ladder, you get married, you have children, you buy a house, you buy a bigger house, you buy a car, you buy a bigger car. And I've done all of that, and I wasn't happy. I felt always, there was something missing. And the something missing is I was just I was living someone else's dream. I wasn't living mine. Um, but you don't really realize that until everything that you have is kind of torn apart from you. And then you actually get to the bare you, and you can realize who you are, what you want, what's important to you in life. And I guess, sometimes, and what I what I know is that whatever I'm going through, whether bad or good, is temporary. And when I'm struggling, I have that gift of perspective that, this is, I can kind of step up of that here and now, and I can see myself in a year's time, 5 years' time, and I'm thinking this is not going to matter back then. I'm only going to remember the good stuff. And that's the thing, when I look back, I don't remember the bad stuff. I only remember the bonding moments, the special things that, come with me for the rest of the life. All that bad stuff kind of gets lost in the way. So things that I've been doing, for example, I had some times where I was really, really struggling. Like I knew things were going to change, but it takes time. You don't know when it's going to change. You're doing your best, and whenever you fail, I'm looking to go in this direction, and I fail, and I think, okay, well, I'm not just going to get down about it. I'm just going to change it. It doesn't mean that I can't get there. I just need to change the way that I'm approaching that journey. And so what I did is I wrote a letter from my future self to me in the way that I don't know what's going to happen in between, but what would that person, that version of me who's made it through it, tell me now? And that really helped me. And it's actually my blog, actually. So to me, is there is always something positive. There's always opportunities, even in our worst times. And I think when you are like stuck in that mentality of intrusive thoughts, and just you get like a cycle, when you have anxiety, and you spiral. And I think, well, just hold on, I understand how my brain works now because I took the time to get to know myself. And then I have the opportunity to look around me and see it's not just about the bad stuff. There's always good things. There's always opportunities coming from anything in life. It's all about learning. It's all about finding that sense of purpose. And a lot of the struggles that I went through gave me that sense of purpose that I didn't have before. And that was a very long answer.
Gosh. No, that's a beautiful answer there, isn't it? I love the letter from your future self to yourself now. If I can just unpick some of the things you said there. So, first of all, so you've been through a lot those last 3 years, and which is incredible. But you alluded to the fact that you externally, people looking at you would think you had everything, right? So you get the job, you get your marriage, you get the kid, you get everything. You should be happy, right? I've heard it called you're living a karaoke life. So you're singing along to somebody else's tune. It's not your thing. And you've articulated probably the best way ever that I've heard. That's what we hardly ever hear about, but it's called post-traumatic growth. So we always hear about the opposite, post-traumatic stress disorder. And you just reeled off half a dozen things in your life in the last 3 years that are really, really big, bad things, and nobody's going to celebrate them having happened. And you could, if you wanted, you could let those destroy you. You could use those as a way of feeling bad for the next 40 years by reflecting on them. But post-traumatic growth, which you've articulated beautifully, means that bad stuff happens, like seriously bad stuff happens, right? And you use that to come back stronger. I suspect this podcast wouldn't have happened if you didn't have that backstory, right? So there's something good that's come out of it. I suspect you're a better mum to your child because of what you've been through. So actually, we hardly ever hear about actually adversity. Yes, it can break us, but it can also be the making of us. And it sounds like you've used the last 3 years to come back stronger, which I think is super powerful. And there's just one other. I think it's Robert Holden. His quote. He says something like, your past has your past has finished with you so long as you have, or something. So it means that you're not continually going back there and dredging it up, which is what therapy does, by the way. Tell me if you go to therapy, they'll want to know all about what happened in the last 3 years. You'll be revisiting those memories and coming out feeling awful, whereas you've kind of acknowledged it's happened, acknowledged it's been really super bad, but actually, how can I use that to spring forward? So well done you. Yeah, well done you. um, it's
Yeah,
called
no,
the
no,
90
thanks.
10, the 90-10 principle, by the way, just very quickly while it's in my head. So I think it's a Stephen Covey thing. So the 90-10 principle, if I can remember, says something like um, 10% of whether you have a good life or a bad life is about things that are going to happen to you anyway. And in your case, some bad stuff has happened in the last 3 years. But 90% of whether you have a good life or a bad life is how you choose to respond to the 10%. So we all have, I mean, nobody, you've had more than your fair share, but everybody will have, we're going to lose people that we love. They're going to die. We're going to lose our job. We're going to get divorced. We're going to have an illness. So these things happen to almost everybody. That's 10% of whether you have a good life or a bad life. 90% is how you choose to respond to that adversity. And you are basically, the 90% is what's in our control. And we don't seem to realize that. The attitude you carry around with you is within your control. And that's the big deal there. That's the bit we can control. So, yeah, well, you've articulated it through giving us examples. You've articulated a whole load of positive psychology science without once mentioning the science. So, well done.
Well, yeah, it's easy done when you don't know the science behind it. So,
Yeah. But
but
you've learned, you've used life experiences to teach you, which is a whole lot better than using the science.
like when people come to me, like when I say these things, and you can see like how they feel shocked and how they feel sad for me, and I'm really sorry that you went through that. It's like, well, Okay, but I don't feel sorry for it. I mean, I can talk about it and I don't feel bad about it. I feel really positive because for me, this is not something bad that happened to me. This is something good. I mean, it's tough and it's painful, but it's something good that happened to me because I'm not the same person that I was before. Thanks to that, I have a purpose in life because of what happened to me. So it's positives. And to me, like, I guess what I'm trying to say to the listeners is that no matter what you're going through, and you can go through a lot of tough shit, let's say it like that, you can always put a positive spin to it. And frankly, another thing was then well, two things actually is me letting go of control. Okay, so I did have and probably I still have PTSD, but it doesn't stop me living my life. As I say, like I still grow and I feel happy and I struggle sometimes as well. But it doesn't take away the positive out of what I experience. And I kind of had to learn, and this is really difficult for someone who's been through trauma, and it's really difficult for many neurodivergent people, is letting go. I don't have control over a lot of things, and I shouldn't. It's about feeling like, for example, I'll tell you another thing just in case I didn't have enough. I'll tell you another one that's just about just happened. By the time that people or the listeners see this episode, we will know what was the outcome. But at the moment when we are recording, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. But basically, I've been put into a redundancy pool. So in a month's time, I'll know whether I'm being made redundant or not. And, I am probably a lot calmer than I should be because, there is a part of me, the part of the anxiety that tells me, well, you need to be able to pay a mortgage. You need to be able to put food on the table. You have a child, you can be homeless or, starving. But the thing that I know is that whatever happens in my life, I will be able to sort it out. It is within me to make something bad, something positive. I can get out of this because I know I've done it before. I know that many people have done it before. And it sucks. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't suck. And I'm not going to tell you that I don't feel anxious about it sometimes. But I'm learning to let go of that control. I know that, some bad things that happen to us, some difficult things that happen to us, are the stepping stone for something better. Say, for example, this job, do I love it? No. Do I like the paycheck? Yes, like many people listening feel about their jobs probably. But, if I would choose not to lose my job, that would be my choice. But if I lost it, I would have the opportunity to maybe reinvent myself, to maybe work on something that I love more. And that's not really something that I wouldn't just give up my job um, for for something that I love if it gives me less financial stability. But if I am pushed out, then I have that opportunity to reinvent myself yet again.
Again, beautifully said. I think as a 2%er, if you're in that 2% mode, you will never be unemployed, right? Organizations, whether it's your current one or a future one, are crying out for people who show up as their best self. They're crying out for people who've fallen back in love with Mondays. If you can just bring that to the workplace, you will stand out a mile, all right? Honestly. And with the attitude that you've learned over the last 3 years, I think you're never going to be short of a job. It's interesting whether in the long term you would choose to go back into another corporate 9 to 5 job, or whether you would take the risk of doing something, maybe freelance, starting your own business. I don't know what that might be, but what you'll find is 2%ers, they are much more willing to kind of give things a go. They will take a calculated risk. Whereas I've met people, Sonia, who've like, I hate my job. How long have you been there? 30 years. I've not had a good day yet. And I'm like, well, leave. Go and do something else. Because a 2%er wouldn't stay for 30 years hating every day. They would say, okay, I've tried to be positive. I've tried to do stuff. It's not working for me. I'm going to look for something better where I can be fulfilled. So I think it'd be interesting what the next 2 or 3 months holds for you. But I guarantee it will hold something interesting and exciting. Yeah, that's the thing. Because we don't want a boring life, do we? We want to kind of count down to retirement. It's called destination addiction. Destination addiction is where we put happiness into the future. I'll be happy in the summer holiday. I'll be happy at Christmas. I'll be happy when I retire in 15 years. And too many people are kicking their happiness into the long grass. Whereas really, if you can find peace and happiness kind of now, if you can find it on a Monday, then I think that's the magic sauce, really. But of course, that's not about Mondays. We've learned that Mondays are bad and Fridays are good. We've got all these learned behaviors, but yeah, having to rethink. You spend a seventh of your life on Monday. I get really passionate about this. So many people they've got what I call irritable bastard syndrome, right? Where they hate Mondays because everybody else hates Mondays. And I go, well, you spend a seventh of your life on Mondays. You've got to kind of flip that around. Um, and therefore, it is a mindset thing. It's not the day of the week. It's not really what's happened to you. We're back to how you choose to respond to that. And you've articulated it better than I've ever heard. I think in terms of post-traumatic growth, choosing a great mindset, and staying positive against the odds.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know what's coming next, for the better or the worse, and if you want it to be better, then I think, like, if you're stuck in the negative mindset, bad things will happen to you. They will keep happening to you because you miss out the opportunities. You're just so focused on to seeing the bad things that you miss all the good, all the things that, the bad one.
Let me just jump in there. I know that we're running short of time, but there's a what I was looking for in my PhD. I'm kind of really interested in this piece that when you're feeling low now in this moment, if you're not feeling great now in this very moment, you're anxious or you're worried or you're stressed out or you're feeling depressed, then everything that you did in the past comes back to haunt you. You think, oh well, I was such a failure in the past, and your future seems completely dark as well. It's like, well, I can't really make anything happen in my life. So this moment now, if you're feeling bad in this moment now, then your past has got a dark cloud over it, and your future seems like it's dark as well. But here's the difference. If you're feeling amazing now in this moment, so you're feeling grateful, you've got a smiling face, you're in 2% mode, then all of a sudden, not only do you feel great right now, but all the past that you've got is like, well, I did mess up in the past, but everybody makes mistakes. So your whole past is coloured with kind of, it's not been so bad. And the future seems a whole lot brighter. It seems, do you know what? There are opportunities. I'm going to go for them. So actually learning to feel great now in this moment also will color your past and your future, and it'll put them full color instead of black and white. So learning to feel great now is it opens up your past and your future, which is interesting, I think, psychologically.
Yeah, I think as well, like, having compassion for yourself is really important. I think we have a lot more compassion for other people than we do have for ourselves. I know, like, when you were just explaining the past mistakes, and you crucify yourself for them. And I know I did. And I had to be very conscious in my thoughts and say, you know what? I'm here to learn like everyone else. Why am I not allowed to make mistakes just like everyone else? I am allowed to make mistakes, and I don't think other people view them as bad as I do. And something that I noticed as well, I don't know if there is a science to this. When I was really low, I think, like, people didn't really look at me, or they didn't look in the same way at me, and suddenly I'm positive. I'm feeling really positive. Suddenly everyone is saying hello to me and smiling, and I was like, what is happening here?
Yes,
So yeah, I
I
think,
call it's flourishing when you're feeling amazing. People want to be around you because you give energy. It's called relational energy. So actually, when I was sharing on your workshop, I think was when you're in 2% mode, that's really good for you. So when you're at the top end of that well-being graph. That's good for you. It's good for your happiness. It's good for your creativity. Good for your energy. But it's bigger than you. So what happens is, I call it flourishing. Is when you're in 2% mode, that's it kind of leaks out of you and creates what I call upward spirals of emotion in the people around you. So you become somebody that people are gravitating towards, which is why you're never going to be out of work as a 2%er, because you make things happen. You draw people towards you with your enthusiasm. And in the modern world, everybody's at the bottom end of the well-being graph, sucking the happiness out of people. So you're like putting it back into a meeting situation. You put it back into your family, then you stand out for the right reasons. And I think if I was in a school, I always tell teenagers, because you're talking about trying to be perfect. And I stopped trying to be perfect and start being amazing. So quit trying to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, are they? We all make mistakes. But if you're amazing, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. It's like, okay, everybody messes up. Um,
So, can you tell us a little bit now, just moving towards the end of the episode, to talk about your experience building this business? Obviously, we'll have with challenges, and you're kind of talking about positive mindset, and how did that kind of process of building that
yeah,
business
yeah.
start?
Yeah, well, we're 20 years old now. We are. It's interesting if you go back 20 years when our company Art of Brilliance was formed. It was just me, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have some grand plan of 20 years. I was just making it up as I went along. Um, but well-being wasn't a thing 20 years ago. And in fact, neurodiversity wasn't really a thing 20 years ago. There were very few, it wasn't talked about like it is now. And well-being wasn't talked about at all. So actually the language has changed now, and it's now it's burnout and stress and all that kind of stuff. So we have grown the team to 20 people. We've got a lovely backroom team now as well, who look after our customers beautifully. We deliver all over the world. My challenge has always been to get people who are really, really good trainers who can bring it to life. So getting good people. There's a lot of people who actually look at what we do and think that they can do it and want to join us, and they've got to be the right fit for our business. So my biggest challenge, I think, has been to growing the business sustainably in terms of getting the right people through the door who can deliver training that makes people go wow. So that's been the challenge. But it's been great. I mean, there's been ups and downs. Obviously, we had the pandemic where everybody's diaries just emptied overnight. It was crazy. There was no money coming in. We had to go webinars for about a year. So we've all had we went through the 2008 financial crisis where things were tough. So business has been up and down, but generally steadily up. And I'm super proud that we now do work in schools and businesses. And I think it's where schools, where morally we need to be, because getting young children and young people into really good mental health habits and well-being habits early, I think, is potentially a life-changing thing.
I've seen your merchandising, and just looking at it makes me feel a bit happier.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
we do t-shirts and posters and postcards. Yeah, I mean, like social media. I'm not big on social media, but social media seems to be antisocial, particularly X. If I go on X or Twitter, it's like so negative. So what we do is just pump out positive. I mean, whether anybody looks at it is not the point. The point is we're going against the grain. We're just going to pump out positive messages with beautiful graphics, and if people like it, they'll follow us. If people follow us, they might buy training from us or a keynote from us. But if they don't, that's fine as well. Just be uplifted by our happy pictures.
So one question about so you built your business 20 years ago. I'm trying to build mine now. This is, I guess, what I'm working towards. And I'm pretty sure that there's many other listeners who will be wanting to build something they're passionate about. And like me, they will be facing a lot of barriers and trying to get out there, like going from being known just around your neighborhood to actually reaching people. And it's not about the content that you make. I mean, it's what you've made is amazing. Probably what I'm going to make hopefully is amazing as well, and the listeners are building amazing projects as well. How do you how do you not feel negative or kind of
Yeah.
give up on any hope when things, you put all your effort, you tried your very best, you show up every time, but you still don't get through what you
It's a
want?
lot. I mean, some people do get lucky and achieve overnight business success. It's taken 20 years for us, right? And it's a grind, it's a graft, it's really, really hard work. But I think if it's your business and you love it and you love the message, then there's an element of um, grit and determination that's required, and a big dollop of luck as well. I would say to anybody really starting a business or building a business is don't chase the money. So what I tell all our trainers is let's not chase the money. It doesn't matter. If we can be the best training company on the planet, right? Genuinely, hand on heart, and we're scoring 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10 every single time, the money will find us. The money will find its way to us by being the best at what we do. So I would say whatever product, whatever your service is, whoever's listening to this, is stop chasing the money and start to create something amazing. And if you create something amazing and you hang in there for a little while, eventually the money will find its way. Promise.
And just looking ahead, what's next for the Art of Brilliance? Is there any new projects or?
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of new books coming out. So we've got a range of books. Our flagship book was called The Art of Being Brilliant. So hopefully everybody can go and get their head in that. It's designed to be a fun, accessible way into positive psychology. So kind of quite cartoony and good fun, full color. But I've just written a book with my son, actually, who's 26 years old, called Ladult. Um, uh, how to journey safely from boy to man, because I think with toxic masculinity, with pornography, with screen time, with the Andrew Tate thing going on at the moment, it's difficult. We've already written a teenage girl book called Girl's Guide to Being Fearless. I wrote that with my colleague Susie Lavington. So I've teamed up with my son, which is a very odd thing to do, but he's a good writer, and aimed at teenage boys. So that's coming out in October. And then we've got The Art of Focus, which is coming out in about a year from now, which is about attention spans and how we ADHD will be in there. Yeah, it's like how the world is messing with us and robbing us of our focus. So we've got that. We've got a new coaching qualification going on. We've got some new keynotes that we're experimenting with, particularly pushing it away from traditional psychology into more of the spiritual consciousness thing. That is my next thing that I'm trying to maybe take Art of Being Brill to the next level.
That's really cool. That's basically right up my alley. All the things that you talked about. I'm just really interested about all of this. But anyway, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Andy.
Well,
Um,
an absolute pleasure, I have to say. So thank you for making it very easy, and thank you for sharing your backstory because I think it's super powerful.
Yeah, I'm hoping just what you're doing is really important in the way that you say it. Like it's really easy to be negative, but you've gone out there to share the positive mindset and how that can impact hugely in our life and our mental health as well, our positivity. And I'm hoping by sharing my experience, other people who this is things that people really don't talk about so much, and I'm hoping that if I share it, then at least someone will feel a little bit less lonely. Um, but yeah, I guess for our listeners, if you want to learn more about Andy and the Art of Brilliance, I'm going to be leaving some links in the episode. And well, remember that no matter where you're starting from, brilliance is within all of us, no matter what. So it's all about finding the right perspective, isn't it?
It is
Um,
indeed. I'll drink to that. Yes, I'll say amen to that. Yeah, fantastic. It is about perspective, and it's about looking at what we have got, carrying a positive attitude. Yeah, it's all of the above.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Andy, and thank you, all the listeners, for tuning into the Intersecting Voices. Until next time, stay resilient and keep shining your unique light. Thank you for tuning into the Intersecting Voices podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on Spotify or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and bring you even better content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. See you next time.